Hi! Welcome to another video lesson wherein we are going to have AAS and right triangle congruence. But of course, let us have a review on the type of triangles. Okay, so on the first figure, you are going to identify what type of triangles are shown. So I have here five slides wherein you are going to give the type of triangles. Okay, so let's have the first figure. So based on the given marking, so what type of triangle is the given figure? Okay, that's correct. So that is Iscalene triangle. Okay, let's have the second one. We have, yes, so this is isosceles triangle is correct. Next, how about this one? Yes, we have here right angle. So that's why this is an example of right triangle is correct. Next, how about this one? So as you have seen, all the angles are having 60 degrees measure. So that's why you will have, yes, equiangular triangle. And for the last, we have this one. So we have here the tick marks here. Okay, so that is, okay, equilateral triangle. Okay, so those are the types of triangles, okay, although they are incomplete, okay. So let's have this slide, okay. So as you have seen in the figure, we may say that only two angles and one side of the two triangles are given with tick marks, okay. So we can observe that angle L is congruent to angle N, and then angle T is congruent to angle I, and segment TE is congruent to segment IW. So, can you think or can you say that these two triangles are congruent given the given measures? Okay, so if you don't have your idea, so let's have the next slide wherein we may say that these two triangles are congruent by using the AAS or the angle side congruence theorem. Because in this theorem, it is stated that if two angles and the non-included side, again, two angles and non-included side of the triangles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent by AAS congruence theorem. Okay, so let's have another triangles here. Again, these two triangles are congruent by AAS or the angle side congruence theorem. Why? So we have these three proofs. Okay, so we have the first one is angle T is congruent to angle I. Then angle L is congruent to angle N. And then side TE is congruent to side IM, or segment TE is congruent to segment IM. Okay? So as you have noticed, we are given angle side. Then also on the second triangle, we also have angle side. Okay? So in this case, you will not take note of the included side. Okay? So the side that are congruent, or the sides that are congruent on our two triangles should not be or may not be included. So that's why we only have angle side. Okay, congruence theorem. Okay, so let's have another one. Okay, so this activity is entitled Keep Right. Okay, so get a rectangular sheet of paper. Okay. So take for instance that you already have your rectangular paper. Okay? So you are going to divide the rectangle diagonally as shown. Okay? So you are going to divide like this. Okay? And then you are going to cut. Okay? So, as you have cut the triangles, okay, what kind of triangles are formed? Okay, that's correct. So, you have formed right triangle. So, two right triangle. So, as you have noticed, we have here the right angle. Because when we say right triangle, as we have on our previous videos, when we say right triangle, it is a kind or type of triangle wherein one angle measures 90 degrees. So, like this two triangles. Okay, so to proceed, let us solve the parts of the right triangle. So what are the parts of a right triangle? Do you have any idea? Okay, so if you don't have, so let's proceed. Okay, so the first and the most unique part of the right triangle is the hypotenuse. Okay? So hypotenuse is always the longest side of the right triangle. So as you have seen in our figure, so this is the hypotenuse. Okay? And take note also that hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. Okay? So again, this is our right angle. Okay? So, we have here the hypotenuse. Then the other two sides are called the legs. Okay? So, this is the first leg and this is the other leg. Okay? So, they are perpendicular. So, obviously, they are perpendicular because they have formed a right angle here. Okay. So, let's now have the right triangle congruence. Okay, so what are those? Okay, so in these two figures, in these two triangles, so we have the tick mark on segment MO. So therefore, it is congruent to segment AB. And then segment ON with segment BC. Okay, again, what are these parts? Yes, they are the legs. Okay, so therefore, we have now the LL congruence theorem. Okay, so when we say LL congruence theorem, it states that if the legs of one right triangle are congruent to the legs of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Okay, so as you have seen, we have here the tick marks, okay, on segment MO and segment ON, and also with segment AB and segment BC. Okay, so again, that is LL, congruence theorem, leg, leg. Okay, next, so we have here these proofs. So as I have said, segment AB is congruent to segment MO and segment BC is congruent to segment ON. So therefore, the two triangles, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle MON. Okay? So let's now have these figures. Okay? So what parts are being or are given with the tick marks here? Okay, so that's correct. We have the hypotenuse and acute angle because we have here HYA. Right? So hypotenuse, acute angle congruence theorem, wherein it states that if the hypotenuse and an acute angle of one right triangle are congruent to the hypotenuse and an acute angle of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Okay? So, let's have these proofs. Okay? So, we have here angle S is congruent to angle X and segment SU is congruent to segment XZ as our hypotenuse. So, hypotenuse and an acute angle are congruent. So, therefore, triangle STU is congruent to triangle XYZ. Okay, so that's the second one. Next, let's solve this figure. So, what part is this? Correct, this is a leg. How about this one? Acute angle. And also on the other triangle, leg and acute angle. So, we may have here the LA congruence theorem. So, what this is all about? Okay? So, if a leg and an acute angle of one right triangle are congruent to a leg and an acute angle of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Okay? So, as you have seen in the figure. Okay? So, let's have the proof. So, we have here segment OR is congruent to segment LM, so as our leg. And then, angle O is congruent to angle L as our acute angle. So, that's why triangle ORS is congruent to triangle LMN by using the LA congruence theorem. Okay? And the last is this figure. Okay? What is this part? Hypotenuse. How about this part? Leg. Okay? So, and also with the other triangle, hypotenuse and leg, because the last type of congruence theorem is the hypotenuse leg, or the HYL congruence theorem, wherein if the hypotenuse and a leg of one right triangle are congruent to the hypotenuse and a leg of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Okay? So the proofs, okay? So we have segment AC, which is the hypotenuse, is congruent to segment DF, which is also the hypotenuse of the second triangle. And number 2, segment BC of the first triangle and segment EF of the second triangle, they are congruent. So that's why we may say that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay? Any question? Okay, so again, the right triangle congruents are the following. We have the LL, or the leg-leg congruence theorem, followed by HYA, or hypotenuse angle congruence theorem, followed by LA, or the leg and acute angle congruence theorem, and the last is the HYL, or the hypotenuse leg congruence theorem. Okay, so it's now time for you to investigate. Okay, so let's try. If you really understood the different types of congruence theorem that we have for this day. Okay, so for this figure, we have triangle OLE and triangle IRI. Okay, again, triangle OLE and triangle IRI. Okay, so what congruence are you going to use for you to say that these two triangles are congruent? Okay, that's correct. So obviously, we have the leg and leg with the tick mark. So that's why this is with the use of LL congruence theorem. Next, how about this one? We have triangle CAD and triangle RDA. What is the congruence that you are going to use here? That's correct. We have the AAS. Okay, so we have angle, angle, side, because you are going to use here the reflexive property. Okay, next, let's have this one. Okay, we have triangle RTS and triangle AFS. So we have tick mark here, tick mark here. Okay, sorry. And also on the other triangle. So what part is this? What part is this? Okay. So we have here, yes, hypotenuse leg, or the HYL congruence theorem. Okay, let's have this one now. Okay, so we have triangle PQR is congruent to triangle TSR. Okay, so what congruence are you going to use? Okay, so we have here LA, because you are going to use here the concept of vertical angles. These two angles are congruent. Okay, and for the last, let's have this one. We have triangle COD and triangle RMN. So this is what part? This is what part? And also on the other triangle. So they are congruent by, okay, correct, by HYA. Okay, or the hypotenuse and acute angle congruence theorem. Okay, so is there any question? If you have no questions, so let's have this exercise. So match the congruence postulate or theorem that can be used to prove that the triangles are congruent. Okay, so instead of matching, so let's just answer this orally. Okay, so we have here in number 1. So what kind of postulate or theorem that you are going to use in number 1? Okay, so this is, yes, so we have side, angle, side. Why? We have here to use reflexive property. So side, angle, side, because this is, or they are congruent angles. So because they are right angles. Next, number 2. We have, number 2 is, yes, letter A. HYA, hypotenuse and an acute angle are given the tick mark. So that's why HYA, which is letter A. How about number 3? What parts are given with tick marks? Yes, they are the legs. So number 3 is LL. So letter E. How about number 4? What parts are given the tick marks? Yes, they are the hypotenuse and the leg. So that's why this is letter D, the HYL. And for the last number, number 5, what parts are given the tick marks? Okay, so we have here the leg and acute angle. So this is letter G, LA. Okay, so I hope you understand or you understood our discussion. Okay? So I will leave you this quotation. Congruence between what you say and what you do is the key to authentic happiness by Paul T.P. Wong. Okay? So that's all for this day. Thank you. Keep safe, everyone.